Hello everyone, I'm Joel. Welcome back to Shining Empathy. This is a bit of a special video. I'm going to be doing my very first deck review. And I thought, what better deck to review than the very first deck I ever had. So, one of the first things I wanted to kind of branch just to talk about are the different different card systems out there. Specifically tarot versus oracle. Tarot, a lot of people will just apply the name tarot and just think it refers to any form of card reading. Not the case. Tarot is a very specific system. It has the four suits, numbers 1 through 10 for each suit. It has the major and the minor arcana, which are like literally the majors and minors. It almost mirrors a playing cards deck, and from what I've researched online, it kind of looks like the tarot might have emerged from one of the old playing decks. I think one of the oldest that we can trace back to was one that was designed for modern day, like something like modern day bridge. So anyway, a little brief history on where tarot came from. Now, oracle cards, which are mostly what I use personally, they tend to, some of them can be inspired by tarot imagery, but aren't necessarily the format. They won't necessarily have the suits, like the pentacles, wands, swords, etc. They won't necessarily have those, but they will have just a lot of images with very specific messages on them, and sometimes they just even make up their own systems completely. So that's what oracle cards are versus tarot. On that note, the very first system I ever got was a tarot system. Now, probably because I really wanted, if I was going to get myself a deck of cards, I wanted it to be a traditional deck. I wanted it to be something that was very like my one of my friends at the time who kind of introduced me to card reading. He, I believe, had a traditional tarot deck at the time, and I wanted it to be very similar. I was inspired by that. So this deck is called, slam my cards down there. This deck is called the Gilded Tarot. And Barbara Moore is the, I don't think she's the artist, but she's the creator of the deck. So this is actually considered, I believe, one of the beginner decks for tarot now. I think I saw in one of the stores recently a box that was like Beginner's Guide to Tarot, and it had this deck of cards specifically in it. And I can't say I'm surprised because it's a very traditional system of the tarot, but it's sort of very modern in its art. And I'm just going to quickly show you a few cards here. I mean, you can even see just on the deck here. I hope the glare doesn't matter too much there. But the Fool, yes, the Fool on the front. The art was it had a very computer graphics kind of feel to it, so it just immediately felt more updated and modern, but still very much connected to the old imagery behind the tarot, the older tarot decks, like the Rider-Waite. It just brought something new to the table, like there's a new flavor of it. The Empress, see that there? I'll just show you, okay, so there's the Devil. Some people are really scared of this card, but I think that's one of the reasons too why I wanted to get away from tarot, was because a lot of people found the imagery on tarot just dark and scary. When you get into it, it's not really. I mean, if you want to get into all aspects of this world, not everything is all light and fluffy and fairy and airy. But as far as the images in this deck, like they might have looked kind of scary, like the Death card. But the underlying meaning of even the Death card is more like a rebirth. It's like something is absolutely coming to an end, but there's also a rebirth happening. Something new beginning. So they're just not as dark and scary as they might seem. I certainly don't make any predictions of death in my readings. When it comes to the way I read, I don't very often do future predictions. Mostly it's about what's happening right now, where are the situations and how it's kind of evolving, the situation's evolving, and what your part is in it, what role you're playing, what you can do to maybe one or two outcomes, how you can affect those. very rarely will I ever make some kind of a prediction for future. It's my personal belief that the future is just so not set. I could have someone sit here and tell me what my future is, but I believe in free will. So because of that, yes, just the very act of that person telling me about those future events, I might interfere with it to the point, if even trying to make it happen, where I make it not happen, if that makes sense. So just because the events could lead into tomorrow and create this future outcome doesn't mean it's going to happen. So I will very rarely ever, if ever, make a future prediction. I mostly just talk about what's happening right here, in the here and now. So let me see a couple cards here. So the Queen of Wands, kind of fiery. And I don't want to get into too much about the suits and what they mean, but wands are kind of related to career, profession, purpose, passion, creative. Swords are very intellect. What else here? Oh, here's the Fool card. Just was on the cover of the book. Cups. Cups deal with more with the emotional landscape of things. Pentacles. Typically very resource-driven, monetary, but any kind of physical resources usually. And non-physical, I suppose. Seven of Cups. I'm obviously not going to show you the entire deck here. There are 78 cards. But I did want to just give an idea of what the artistry in this deck is like. I was drawn to it because, I do love color. Anything that gives a good splash of color, I'm going to feel kind of drawn to. It also felt a little bit updated and modern, so it kind of spoke to me for that. It had, this is the perfect example of the modern, integrated some kind of almost mechanistic style in the image for the Wheel of Fortune. I think that, yeah, Wheel of Fortune. Oh, and here's Death. I don't find this to be a really scary death card at all. But yeah. And actually, you can see right there the white rose, which symbolizes what's growing out of the ashes of what's dead. So it's a very different message than just death. I'm just going to keep thumbing through these, and if I see something that I want to show you, I'll show you. But I definitely think this is a great beginner deck if someone wants to get into traditional tarot. For me, though, I was finding that tarot was feeling like a bit of an older system. A lot of the readings and sort of layouts, spreads and stuff gravitated towards past, present, future, past, present, future. And I don't know, that just felt really linear to me. And it just didn't feel, I guess, organic. So I wasn't even necessarily aware of oracle decks when I got this deck. So it kind of escaped me that there was anything else for quite a while, many years later actually. I just kind of went on thinking that I wasn't really wrapping my head around my cards or how to read cards, or that I didn't have the intuition behind it. I just wasn't gifted that way, which put a damper and a bit of a stunt in my learning, in my growth, and created quite a learning curve. I think I'm kind of thankful for that, though. You don't necessarily want to just rock it off. If there's a pause in your learning, then it might just very well be for a reason. And I think for me, it absolutely was. There's the Chariot. I'm going to try and tilt them down and up just to make sure that you guys get at least one. The Hierophant. Oh, Tower. I think a lot of people find this card to be kind of scary because the foundation is shaken. It tends to mean just kind of like drastic changes coming. There's nothing you can do about it. You can just kind of hang on while things are just kind of going down around you. So it can be a very vulnerable card, but change isn't bad necessarily. The Ace of Cups. Oh, Two of Cups, which is sort of like a spin on the Lovers, which is in the major arcana portion of this deck. But even more so is about, I found this one to be much more about two people coming together in a union of some kind. Could be business, but I mean, it's the cup, so it's probably emotional, right? And yeah, there's all kinds of images and cards. 78. So I think I'm going to one more. High Priestess. One of my favorites. So that's this deck. So I think if you were a beginner who wanted to get into tarot systems specifically, I think it's a pretty great deck. That said, I didn't find it spoke to me. I found I eventually needed to wander off. When I did find an oracle deck, and it was actually Sacred Geometry, I will do a deck review of that at some point. It didn't have much of the traditional tarot system attached to it whatsoever. It was very much an oracle deck that was set apart. And it was the first time I found myself kind of intuitively reading the cards, and the spread was different. The main spread was a spiraling flower of life kind of spread. And it talked about much more of the situation and how it's developing rather than past, present, and future. And it just seemed to really jive with me, and my readings suddenly just took a jump. And I went from feeling like I had no intuition with these cards at all to being like, oh, I actually am pretty good at this. It just was the cards and the system itself that maybe I wasn't connecting to. As a result of that, I haven't bought a traditional tarot deck since. I have a couple of decks that have many tarot-inspired images in them, like some from the Strength and whatnot, but no specifically tarot decks like this. So overall, I think that I'd recommend this deck. Now, one of the things that bothered me about getting this now, I love when we get these big books. I'm a reader, so I like to kind of dive in and read the entire book. It's a lot of good information. Unfortunately, there was no colored images of the cards, just the symbols, which, whatever. But I like to kind of know what inspired the person to make these decks. There are so many decks out there. Why did you feel the need to go ahead and make your own? Right? Where did it come from? But what really kind of irked me, and I'll show you here, there's a whole cluster of pages here, probably a good 20 or 30 pages. And I cut the corner off them and wrote here, they're actually a duplicate of previous pages. It's literally like the pages were just doubled. And that drove me crazy because I wasn't ever sure. It didn't seem like anything was missing, but I was never sure. And so it kind of put that doubt in my mind even further of like the quality of the deck and just the quality assurance. I'm a bit OCD with this stuff, so maybe for some of you that wouldn't bother you as much. When I actually went through and discovered that none of the cards were missing and it seemed like everything was there, I kind of made peace with it, but it still just was that little in the back of my mind with it. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this deck review. If you guys want to get a hold of this deck, it's everywhere. Again, like it's one of the most beginner style tarot decks out there, and it's also, I imagine it speaks to a lot of more younger people because just the images are more updated and modern, colorful. But you could get it on Amazon, Wordery, any website at all, Chapters Indigo. Pretty much every store I've ever been into has also sold it. It's such a standard deck, run of the mill. But it was special to me during that time period when I just was starting up and getting into it. And yeah, it's still a really great deck though. So thanks for watching, and looking forward to doing some more of these deck reviews in the future. If I do get any decks that come directly that I'm ordering, I'll do maybe an unboxing with you guys while I do a bit of a short review with it. Obviously I can't do a crazy review because I won't have had my experience with the cards, but I can at least do a kind of unboxing review with it. And if you like this video, and if you like my channel, go ahead and subscribe to Shining Empathy on YouTube, right there. And yeah, I will see you guys in the future. Love and light to you all. Bye for now.